We're live.
Welcome to the 6th episode of Stories in Living Color, produced by the Storytelling Association of California. My name is Rick Roberts. This project pairs up storytellers who work together to craft stories about their experiences regarding race, discrimination, and inequity. This is part of the national discussion on these issues, and this project is our effort to help keep these discussions going. Over the last 6 months, the tellers involved in Stories in Living Color, whose pictures you can see behind me, have been brave enough to transcend the solitary experience of storytelling and work with another teller, someone from a different community. They are an example for all of us by learning about another person, another culture, and helping us all to change the perception of others into a more inclusive, wider, and more diverse community. We are in the process of bringing in more tellers to the project. We provide workshopping sessions, so any level of experience is welcome. And tellers are paid as well. Whether the tellers are experienced or not, we feel that they should be compensated for their good work here. If you are interested in joining the project, please go to the Storytelling Association of California website for contact information. The link is in the chat. I'd like to give a big shout out to Rocky Ross of the Reboot, Storytelling Reimagined, for her invaluable help, both with workshopping tonight's stories, as well as enhancing our production. Another shout out goes to Dane Larkin, who is running the tech tonight. Tonight's show is emceed by Canute Rary. Canute lives in Hayesville, North Carolina. He is a storyteller and event producer. Canute was co-managing director of the Taha Storytelling Festival in 2019 and 2020. Probably got that pronunciation wrong, Canute. He is on the board of the Southern Order of Storytellers, and he produces live and via Zoom from Hayesville, North Carolina, Stories on the Square. Please welcome Canute Rary.
Oh, thank you, Rick. Thank you. It's great to be here with you, and it's great to be here with you all out there in the audience. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. You're going to hear some stories from two sets of paired tellers, and they've been working on these stories for months. The first by listening to one another's experience, and then by developing individual stories and with a common thread in some way reflective of each other. Tonight's stories are the result of that collaboration, and there are two themes that rose to the top. What I would have said and wings. Also, we are going to have a great opportunity later, a treat for you as an audience, and that is that we're going to have a question and answer session where you get a chance to ask questions of the storytellers after they have presented their stories tonight. So now, would our storytellers please turn on your cameras? All right. Hey, Ruby. Hey, Rupa. Hey, Karen. How are you all tonight? Give a big shout out to our audience. It's great to have you all here. Our first storytelling pairing of tellers is Karen Omano and Rupa Mohan. Karen and Rupa, you want to wave to the crowd so we got it? All right. And the second pair is Elizabeth Van Camp and Ruby Simpkins. The two of you, hey, all right, good, fantastic. Rupa, Elizabeth, Ruby, please turn off your cameras. That must mean that Karen is going to be first in telling us a story. And the theme of our first pairing, Rupa and Karen, is what I would have said. What I would have said. And our first storyteller, Carrie Amano. Karen lives in Georgia. She is a storyteller and was an actor, and for 21 years was with Disney World in Florida. And in 2019, she performed at the she performed at the National Storytelling Festival in Jonesboro, Tennessee. Please welcome Karen to the virtual stage.
Thank you, Canute. I'm looking out the small circular window of JAL Flight 1056. All I see for hours are gray clouds. What will be waiting for me across the sea? I'm finally on my way to America. Destination, JFK. I'm 24 and going to study acting for a year in New York City. After 15 hours of flight, I take an airport limousine to the 92nd Y residence. It was a long way from 4th grade in Japan when I fell in love with Hollywood films. The Graduate, Midnight Cowboy, Dog Day Afternoon, Papillon, with a Japanese voiceover. I love the Bee Gees, the Beatles, Rainbow, and Van Halen. Even though I'm not Christian, I went to a Christian high school and junior college because they offered good English education. My first day in Manhattan, I went to the Grand Central Station. Wow, it was the set for the film Falling in Love with Robert De Niro and Meryl Streep. At Times Square, I stood watching the signs of Broadway musicals. Oh, the Phantom of the Opera. A week later, I moved into a tiny studio apartment of a high-rise building. My floor was on the 23rd floor with a beautiful view of Hudson River. Oh, I want to live here for the rest of my life. Well, when I was a sophomore at New York University, I won a lottery green card, yay! I was so excited to enroll in a musical theater class at NYU. Every week, each student was assigned to sing a solo number from different musicals, but neither I nor Korean student received any songs from Professor Hines. We waited and waited. 3 months later, it was a midterm, and finally, we received a song from an Asian-themed musical. Mine was for 3 sailors with tenor voices from Pacific Overtures. I really wanted to do a good job with this song, so I took private voice and accent elimination lessons, and I practiced so hard. I sang with emotions and facial expressions, and Professor Hines clapped his hands. Wow, you are Karen, right? Karen, that was beautiful. After that, he started giving me some songs from Miss Saigon or Flower Drum Song. I was glad that he noticed that I existed. I got an A from that class. After graduation, I was busy with performing in theaters or going to the auditions while I was working for a Japanese karaoke bar till 3 a.m. to pay my bills. And my first paid gig was, of course, The King and I. Luckily, I was hired as a full-time performer, an actor at a big theme park in Orlando, Florida. It was weirdly different from New York. It was so quiet that I couldn't sleep at first. People were smiling wherever I went. They were friendly, but some of the greetings were a little bit cringeworthy. Hey, ni hao. That's Chinese. I'm Japanese. Come on, Japanese, Chinese, same thing. And some of my coworkers or customers made fun of my accent. I started feeling insecure because they treated me as if I were a creature from another planet. I didn't have this problem in New York melting pot because everybody had accent there. I took more accent elimination classes, but it never went away. Meanwhile, I started searching for Mr. Right in my mid-30s because, my biological clock was ticking. I post my profile and pictures on Match.com and receive 500 messages, but mostly from guys with an Asian fetish. Hey, I love sushi. Delete. Ni hao. Delete. My childhood dream was to marry a tiny Japanese woman. Delete. I changed my profile. Please don't talk to me in Chinese. Sushi is not the only food we eat. I am not an obedient woman. I narrowed it down to 22 guys and interviewed each of them at Starbucks. It took me 3 years to find my husband, who is a handsome, intelligent, sweet guy and an immigrant. And most importantly, he didn't have an Asian fetish. We had a baby girl, and he landed a new job as a college vice president. So we moved to a small Midwestern town. When I say small, I mean really, really small town America. Cornfields everywhere, run down old houses, no restaurants, no stoplight. There's a corner store which has a big sign says, florist/guns. Each family has 5 to 6 kids. Everybody knew everybody. And a lot of them had same last names. It was a very white town with a handful Asians, Hispanics, and African Americans. On a beautiful summer day, my 7-year-old daughter and I head to the local playground, and there are 4 teenagers and a toddler hanging out in the swings. We decide to keep walking, and right after we pass them, we hear them call out, "Look at the Asians in the parking lot. My heart was pounding. My daughter and I rushed home. And my husband was furious when he heard this racist story, what happened to us by the playground. He said, "What? Let's go get them before it's too late." We jump into his car and race back there, but by the time we got to the playground, they were already gone. My husband was disappointed. He has no tolerance for racism because his Jewish grandfather was jailed and then exiled from Germany by the Nazis. The next day, my daughter had a play date at the same local playground with her friend. And the boy's father and I were chatting, and I told him what happened to us the day before. And he's white and in his mid-40s, and he burst out laughing. There are good teenagers and wild teenagers in this town. They would even pick on me. Yes, but they wouldn't pick on you because of your skin color or where you're from or your language. Uh, I see. And they were with a toddler. You know, the little one will grow up hearing those racist remarks, and in the future, he'll do the same thing. When I was telling that to him, I realized that I had grown up hearing racist remarks about Korean people who lived in Japan. My mother would call them the others. My friends spread the rumors that Korean people would attack us in the street, so I was scared of them. But I made friends with the Korean people after I moved to the US and found that they're very sweet, intelligent, and fun people. Now, my 50-year-old African American neighbor understood when I told her the story of those teenagers. There's a lot of that going on in this town. You see that? 3 doors down. There is a Confederate flag on that house. When I told the same story to my mommy friend, who is a Muslim, replied, "Yup, they think I'm a terrorist. You know, bigotry comes from ignorance." That's right. If teachers or their parents don't teach their children about diversity, why don't I get out and do something? Because I'm a diversity central. So I started telling Japanese folk tales at the local library and my daughter's school wearing kimono. And we started inviting students from my husband's college to let them taste Japanese food. After living in a small town in Midwest for 6 years, we moved to another small town in the South. My daughter now is 11 years old, tells me her teacher assigned the students to make a Nazi propaganda poster. Of course, my husband and I took action. The struggle continues. So I still keep telling Japanese folk tales to get children and adults learn about the different cultures. That's how this Japanese woman who loved Hollywood films and Western music came to America, got back into her own roots. I am not ashamed of my accent anymore. In fact, I am proud of who I am. And if someone makes fun of the way I speak now, I would tell them, "Odamari, you go now."
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for that outstanding first story. Yes, thank you so much. Let's see. All right, let's see. Your partner and pairing partner, Rupa. Rupa, would you please, oh, you're so fast with that camera. Turn on your camera and join me on the stage. Hey, Rupa, good evening. Oh, what a beautiful picture. Our next and our second teller tonight, pairing with Karen Amano, is Rupa Mohan. Rupa lives in Walnut Creek, California. She is a storyteller and a docent at the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. She is now busy with virtual school tours and telling personal stories from her childhood. Welcome her to our stage tonight. Take it away, Rupa.
Vanakkam, which means greeting in Tamil, my native language. Well, almost 4 decades ago, I was on a flight taking off from Madras, my hometown, now known as Chennai. As I took off, it hit me that I was leaving behind my beloved hometown, my family, and my rather sheltered life. I was on the way to San Francisco, an immigrant going to a faraway land. Well, the past 4 months had been a whirlwind. In June, I had met my husband. We had both not dated earlier, and we instantly fell in love and decided to become life partners. I wanted a long engagement, but he had to return to his job in the Silicon Valley, and we got married the very next month. And within 3 months, I got my green card. Way too soon. I don't think I was fully prepared. I quickly packed, and here I was on the flight to San Francisco. When I landed in San Francisco, I had my wedding chain and my dot bindi, marks of a good Hindu married woman. And my life started in the new country. My husband helped me with those oversized bags that were full of all things Indian. There were utensils, my Indian clothes, spices, and my grandmother's recipes. The first few weeks were way too quiet and lonely. I remember sitting on a bean bag, the only furniture we had at that time, and listening to pop music on my clock radio. The music, thankfully, was familiar and soothing because, after all, I had gone to a Catholic school in Chennai and had experienced the English language and Western culture. Well, I had to start learning to cook. And the first very important step for any South Indian cook is to learn how to temper mustard seeds. Well, these add a lot of flavor to our South Indian cuisine. So I had to heat up some oil in a pan or a wok, add these mustard seeds, and they would start popping. But the trick was to put a lid on them before they ended up attacking me. And a few of them did. And I still have scars from those old wounds. But soon I became better at controlling those mustard seeds. Well, I wanted to do something out of the house. I wanted to work. I had never worked in India and was so eager to wear my Western clothes and go to work and bring home a paycheck. I got a chance to do that at an electronics firm in the Silicon Valley, and I got a job as an order processing clerk in one of the departments there. The job turned out to be rather mundane and boring, but the company was great. I was in this cocoon of co-workers, all women, and it was very comfortable for me because I had grown up in a very, women-oriented family. My school and college had been all girls, so this was very comfortable. And I soon started learning about the American way of life. When I sat and ate lunch with these women, they so freely shared everything with me, all their experiences and even some personal stories. They would eat their peanut butter sandwiches and the big Subways, which were totally new to me. I chomped on my apple and carrots, little shy and embarrassed to bring my Indian leftovers. I soon realized that Western clothes, especially the shoes and the stockings, were not very comfortable. and I soon wore slacks and sneakers like many of my co-workers. I had fantasized about wearing makeup after reading those glossy fashion magazines back home when I was a teenager, but soon discovered that the shades available here did not suit my skin tone. So I gave that up as well. Well, I was settling into this very comfortable routine when one day my boss summoned me and she said, Rupa, I have volunteered you to fill in for the receptionist at the front desk. She needs to go for a couple days. Since your English is good, I think you can handle it. Well, I was not too thrilled about it, but I didn't resist. I went ahead and sat at the front desk. It was very lonely and isolated, I must say. But I was doing my job, sitting there all by myself. On day 2, I suddenly got this call for a page. This gruff male voice asked me to page someone. And right away, I did it as instructed. Bend over, please go to the front desk. Bend over, please go to the front desk. Well, I didn't think much of it, but a couple minutes later, that same gruff voice was in my ear again, louder and ruder, mocking me, saying, "You can't understand English, you sick bitch. Go back to where you came from." I was startled and tongue-tied. I didn't know what was happening. I felt myself feeling really sick, growing red. I wanted to run to the restroom and calm myself down, but I couldn't leave my post until lunchtime. I sat there feeling really miserable, but trying to put on a brave front because who knew that man and his friends might walk by to see how I was reacting. Well, as soon as I could go for lunch, I went to my boss and I reported this to her. And she told me, "Rupa, you have been pranked. I'm sorry about this, but these may be very crude men on the floor downstairs. Don't worry about it. You can come back to the customer service department." Well, I went back to the cocoon, my comfort zone, but things were not the same after that. I felt unwelcome, not only in the office, in the building, but in the entire country. And I wanted to go back home to Madras. I went to my husband and pleaded with him and asked him to take me back. But of course, he said that it would not be possible, but things would improve for us. He just asked me to hold on. And I did. And I must say, over the years, things did look up for me. And I went on to do bigger and better things. My family became bigger. We had 2 lovely daughters. I went and did my master's degree in education. And it was lovely to see people welcoming me, my wonderful professors, my peers. They didn't seem to care about my accent or my appearance. They encouraged me to present papers, to lead discussions, and to do all sorts of fun things as a student. And to the great joy of my husband and my daughters, I graduated with flying colors. But we were moving a lot those days because of my husband's work. So I didn't really settle down into a conventional career. I got to do a lot of volunteering and soon realized that I love to do these things, to be out in the community, helping with my daughters after school activities, helping in their classrooms. I even got a chance to be on a crisis line in our county. And I was so relieved to find that people listened to me and they did not judge me because of my accent. Some people who were suicidal actually told me that I had helped calm them down with my gentle, soothing voice. Well, that was my best reward. And I was motivated to go on to do other things when my voice mattered. I ran a domestic violence helpline, and it brought me great happiness to bring resources to my clients, to accompany them to court, to negotiate with lawyers, to reunite them with their children, and to bring them immigration support. And over the years, I must say, I was proud to be myself in my own skin. I did not have to attempt to cultivate an American accent or to look differently. I could be my own authentic self. And today, after all these years, I must confess that maybe that man, that rude man who hurt me that day long ago, maybe he did me a favor because I became more resilient, I became stronger, and I also went on to do bigger and better things. Today, if somebody should prank me, I think I would respond immediately with a loud answer. I would say, "Shut your mouth, you punk." Or in my native Tamil, "Vaya mudida porki," and I would put a lid on it.
Thank you, Rupa, for that second story on your theme, What I Would Have Said. Thank you again. I did not say earlier to the folks, you folks in the audience, that we have a chat box down here, and you can add your love to any of our storytellers in that chat box. So please use that to send messages, and we'll get those messages. So thank you. The theme for our second pairing tonight, the second pairing of storytellers, is wings. Wings. And our storytellers are Elizabeth Van Camp and Ruby Simpkins. Elizabeth, would you please turn on your camera? Right. Hey, Elizabeth. Good evening. Good evening. Good picture here. Very good. Such a cute picture. Elizabeth lives in Birmingham, Alabama. She's a bedside storyteller at the Institute in Art in Medicine at the University of Alabama. And she is a co-founder of the Listening Project, a nonprofit organization in Birmingham, Alabama. Please welcome Elizabeth to this stage for her to tell her story now. And I will step out of the way.
On the first day of first grade, Mrs. Howard bustled into the room in her blue wool suit, even though it was August in Alabama, and that is not the time for a blue wool suit. But Mrs. Howard always wore blue because it brought out the blue in her eyes. And she wrote on the board in a rather huffy manner, "Mrs. Howard" in cursive. We were in first grade. We had no idea what it said, but there it was. And underneath it, she put 40 TH. Well, she turned around, straightened her wool suit, and I noticed that she was kind of huffy puffy because she had just had a meeting with all the other first grade teachers out in the hall. And they were looking at the rosters of the students and trying to figure out who was who and what was what. Well, the year 1969, Shades Cahaba Elementary School in Homewood, the first year of integration. Who's Black? Who's white? Well, Mrs. Howard tried to get herself together and she pointed to her name, Mrs. Howard. She pointed to the 40th and she informed us that this was her 40th year and final year of teaching. Well, we just sat there like good little terrified first graders, and we had double-seater desks. So my desk mate was Danny Cook, and I love Danny, and I'll tell you why. We both got teased. As you saw in the picture, at the time, I had bright red hair, and I was the only redheaded person in my class. And the kids called me Bozo the Clown, and I love Lucy, as in Lucy, which I didn't appreciate. And Danny was the only African-American in the class. So people weren't very nice to him because of his color, because he was Black. And Mrs. Howard was very unkind to him. Now, it became very clear early on that Mrs. Howard had planned to sail through reading, writing, and arithmetic in this 40th year of teaching and enjoy the tea parties after school and the retirement parties. So we got a lot of free time. And during this free time, Mrs. Howard would pass out those large rectangular bumpy pieces of paper. They just had that rough texture to them, and say, draw anything you want. That was not my favorite thing. But Mrs. Howard passed out these pieces of paper, and I wanted to draw anything I wanted, but I wasn't good at drawing. I couldn't draw, but Danny could. So after she passed out the sheets of paper, he would put his on his desk, make sure that it was lined up, and he'd do 3 sweeps. Whoosh, 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 across the paper. And then he'd start to work, and I would watch him. I loved Danny's hands. I would look at them when he was drawing, especially. And I loved how his fingernails just fit perfectly into his fingers. And his fingers they weren't real big, and they weren't like boy rough hands. I just wanted to touch them. And I angled ways to touch them all through our days in first grade. Say, oh, Danny, may I borrow your pencil? Or, oh, Danny, look at this. Or, oh, Danny, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to touch you, when I actually had. So this one day we had our pieces of paper, and I was thinking, what am I going to draw? And I can't draw. And Danny, as usual, looked around the room and he picked something to draw. Well, I could tell he was looking at the American flag. And I thought, oh, he's going to draw that, the stars and stripes. But as I watched him, he wasn't drawing the flag. No. He wasn't drawing the flagpole. He was drawing the eagle that was at the top of the flagpole. And I watched him angle the beak and do the curve of the eagle's head and how those wings spread out. And he gave details to feathers that I felt like if I reached out and I touched one of those feathers, it would be soft. And the eagle emerged and it looked proud, and I thought, oh my gosh. And soon his eagle was finished, and Mrs. Howard said, okay, turn in your drawings now. And she came by our desk and collected the drawings. Well, I just scribbled something, literally scribbled nothing, just a scribble. And Mrs. Howard went back to the desk, her desk, and she started flipping through the drawings. Well, she came to the eagle. Oh my, she said. And she picked up this drawing and showed it to the class. Look, everyone, look what Elizabeth drew. I wish I could tell you that I said, Danny drew it, but I can't because I didn't say that. I was so happy to get some attention, even attention that I didn't deserve. My parents had just gotten divorced. My mom and my little brothers and I had just moved from California to Homewood, Alabama, and I was lost. And I felt shuffled around. And here was my moment, even though it really wasn't mine. So I didn't say I didn't draw the eagle. I did look at Danny, and he was just looking down at his lap, at his hands. And now, 52 years later, I'd like to say, Danny, that was a beautiful eagle. You did such a good job, especially with the wings. And I hope you are flying wherever you are. And I hope that you're drawing, always drawing with those beautiful hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for that poignant story this evening. Ruby, please turn your camera on. Good evening, Ruby. Our next storyteller is Ruby Simpkins, and Ruby lives in Los Angeles, California. She's a retired physician, poet, storyteller, and story healer, and she's performed in Northern and Southern California and in Louisiana. And she weaves tales to heal the soul and the spirit and the body. She's preparing to take an RV and go north from Southern California up to the Canadian border. Good evening, Elizabeth. To set up and help set up Elizabeth's story, Ruby's story this evening, we have the incomparable Bobby McFerrin and the Kumba Singers to perform for you tonight.
A little while longer, hold on, just a little while longer, hold on, just a little while longer, oh, everything will be all right, oh, everything will be all right. You got to pray on just a little while longer. Pray on just a little while longer. Pray on just a little while longer. Everything will be all right. Everything will be all right. You got to fight.
I was bone tired. I had gone to class all day and just finished working my 6 to 11 p.m. shift at the medical school library. After closing the library, I always went upstairs to study the anatomy and cadaver labs. I was usually alone, since most of my classmates didn't work. They didn't have to work. They'd already studied and gone home. It's almost 2 a.m. and my eyelids are heavy. My head's falling forward, and then I hear it again from deep within. Wake up, child. You can't sleep now. You gotta hold on. You're almost there. You gonna be a doctor. You gonna fly, child. You'll fly. Well, I rub my eyes and put them back on the textbook page and keep studying. You see, when I was growing up in Louisiana's Bayou country, it was customary for a great aunt to help the expectant mother throughout her pregnancy and also to assist the midwife at the delivery. She also helped raise the child. And when the child was of fetching age, 6 or 7 years, then the child would spend the night with the great aunt. They would be able to go and help in emergencies. I was paired with my great aunt Nain. Nain was a sugar cane cutter because that's the only work she could get. She used to say, "'Tweren't no schools for colored children when I was growing up. Now you study hard, child, and you can be anything you want to be. My wings was clipped, but you'll be able to fly, child. You'll fly." Now, Nain lived in a shotgun house. And a shotgun house is a house that has a front porch, a front room, which is the bedroom, a back room, the kitchen, and the back porch. And it's called a shotgun house because if you shoot a gun through the front door, it goes straight through the house without touching anything. I remember times when I was living with Nain when the clan would ride by and Nain would grab that old sugar cane knife and "Get down, child, and you stay down till I tell you it's safe to get up." And I always felt safe at Nain's house. At Nain's house, my job was to chop wood for the kitchen stove. I would put wood in the old pot-bellied stove in the front room. I'd run errands and I'd clean the house. And I was happy living with Nain. At my house, we slept three to a bed, a little rollaway bed. And you had to put the bed away because there was no room to walk around the house if you didn't. And I was the youngest at the time, so I had to sleep between two of my sisters. So all night, "Move over, you're touching me." "Well, now you're touching me." And "Don't wet the bed." But at Nain's house, it was just the two of us. It was heaven. During the hot summer months, we sat on the front porch and drank ice cold lemonade. We would burn old woolen rags in metal buckets to keep the mosquitoes away. And in the winter time, we sat around that old pot-bellied stove and sipped corn husk tea. Our neighbor, Mr. Johnny, had 2 horses, and he fed them corn. I would go and gather up the husks and take them to Nain, and she cleaned them up and brewed delicious corn husk tea. Ah, those were happy times. And then one day I came home, I did all my chores, chopped the wood, ran my errands, I cleaned the house, and I sat on the back porch waiting for Nain. Off in the distance, I saw a group of women coming towards the house. My Aunt Skeet said, "You can go on home now, child." Nain won't be coming back. Well, child, we took her down to the doctor's office because she took real sick. They didn't do nothing for her. You know, they don't like to treat us coloreds. So we took her down to Nolans, 75 miles away. She kept asking, Skeet, is we there yet? Not yet, Nain. Hold on. Hold on. But she couldn't hold on. It was just too far away. It took too long. She was dead when we got there. Why? Why? Why didn't they help her, Aunt Skeet? Oh, hush, child. She was a human being, Aunt Skeet, just like them. She just had a different color skin. It was just a different color skin. I'm going to be a doctor, Aunt Skeet. I'll change things. I'll help everybody, no matter the color of their skin. She said, oh, hush, child. Ain't no color doctors. I don't care. I'm still going to be a doctor. And, child, ain't no women doctors either. She took me in her arms and rocked back and forth. Oh, hush, child. Lord, Lord, help this child. Poor child. Hush, child. Hush. But I didn't hush. I kept saying it over and over. And after a while, when I walked around our little town, I began to hear, there goes Ruby. She gonna be a doctor. Yes, sirree, I do believe that girl's gonna be a doctor. After high school, I left at 11th grade and went off to college at 16. I had to pay my own tuition. Daddy made 75 cents, maybe a dollar at that time. He was taking care of 5 people. I worked every bit of my way through school. I majored in chemistry, took pre-med courses and graduate courses and physics, biology, a full load every semester. I was in a hurry to get to medical school, but it was very rough, a very, very rough time. Sometimes I was so overwhelmed by the load I could barely keep my eyes open. The book would slip from my hands as I dozed off, and in that space between wakefulness and dream, a presence would wake me. Wake up, child. You can't sleep now. You gotta keep going if you want to be a doctor. It was Nain, always with me, holding me up when I was falling under the weight of it all. You can't stop now, child. You gotta keep going. You gonna be a doctor. You gonna fly, she said. So I finished college in 3.5 years and was accepted at Boston University, Harvard, and the University of Vermont medical schools. I saw all that snow in Vermont and said, no, thank you. Harvard offered me a loan. Boston University gave me a scholarship. So I said, hey, take me, I'm yours. And I arrived in Boston in early September. I had just turned 21 and was away from my family for the first time. No friends. I remember looking down through the plane's little portal as we landed at Logan Airport. All I saw were old, dark buildings, everything looks so dreary. I cried and cried. How am I gonna make it in this big city? $300, that's all the money I had. How long would it last? Don't cry, child. Just hold on. You gonna make it. You gonna fly. So I got a room at the Y, $7 a night, believe it or not, rats and roaches included. I found out the next day at school that my scholarship covered tuition only. No living expenses. I needed a job in a hurry. So I worked 2 jobs, made a whopping $100 a month. I rented half a room from 2 medical students for $75 a month. So I had $25 left. How am I going to do this? Well, my morning job at Boston City Hospital was drawing blood from patients on the ward. And actually it was a godsend. The nurses felt sorry for me. And when a patient died during the night, they would save his untouched breakfast. And I had a meal that day. Well, I survived. I held on and I survived. Now, Mother came up for my graduation. It was her first time flying. Daddy would have come, but he said he wasn't supposed to fly. God didn't give me no wings. But I know he was proud of me, because from graduation day forward until he died, he never called me Ruby. He always called me Doc. Hey, Doc, he would say. Your mother says that you're in New York City, working at Harlem Hospital, Columbia University Services, working at these wonderful places. That's mighty fine, Doc. I remember once he called, hey, Doc, your mother said that you're teaching medical school in Buffalo, teaching other doctors. That's all right, Doc. That's all right. And when I walked across that stage to get my medical doctor credentials, Nain walked with me. She had been there all along, encouraging me. And during those still moments at my darkest hours, from deep within, I felt her presence. You're flying, child, you're flying. So on that day, I held my certificate up high and said, Nain, this is for you. And for all the Nains whose wings were clipped so that they could not fly. I fly for them. I fly for them. Thank you.
Oh, Nan. Man, what just an amazing story. Tell us how about this picture, Nan.
I was about 1.5 years. I was the only one with shoes, as you can see.
Well, that's a sweet picture.
Thank you so much.
Yes. It's all of your cousins and
These are my siblings.
Your siblings. Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, powerful story. Thank you again. Let's see. We want to invite all the other Karen and Rupa and Elizabeth. Please turn your cameras on again. And Gosh, we've had 4 wonderful moving stories. And we've got lots of love in the chat box, which is we definitely deserved. And now is an opportunity for you all in the audience to have this special treat of being able to ask the storytellers questions about their stories and about what moved you about the stories. This up, if you'll write your questions into the chat box, we'll check those out and we'll get those up. We'll give you a minute to do that. And but in the meantime, let me just ask a question or two here. This is, let's see, a question for Karen or Rupa. Have you found any differences between American racism and racial discrimination in this in American discrimination and racial racism, differences between this America and the country of your birth? I'll get it there.
Rupa, go ahead.
Yes, Rupa.
I come from a country where there is the caste system, right? It's been there for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
Now we are trying to do away with it, and it's not so bad in the cities, but it's still there. So and race, and so that kind of discrimination is now based a lot on your economic status in India. There is, of course, also the color of your skin. So lighter color skin is considered superior, especially when you're in the marriage market. And it's unfortunate, but it is there in our society as well. But the good thing is the younger generation is trying to do away with it, and I see that they're marrying outside the community. They don't seem to care about the color of the skin or the economic status. So we are moving away from that back home in India. But unfortunately, we bring some of that when we come here as immigrants, and I've, heard some disturbing stories about racism among the South Asians in this country. And I hope it gets addressed and dealt with.
Great, thank you. Karen?
Yes, yes, I mentioned about, Korean people lived in
Yes.
I left the country 30 years ago, and after that, because of their Korean culture and TV and movie, now Japanese people love Korean culture and love Korean people. So it's been changing. When I grew up, I felt the tendency that Japanese people maybe look down on other Asian people who are in Japan. So
thank you. Elizabeth and Ruby, how did you get involved in this project, and how did you find each other in this pairing? Could you give us a brief answer to that?
I think it was through the community storytellers down here in the Los Angeles area. They said they were looking for people that the Storytelling Association of California was looking, and Karen, who runs it, said, "Why don't you participate?" I said, "Ooh, I don't know. Maybe I need the practice, so I'll do it." And I like the idea of bringing different cultures together, because that's a part of one of the reasons I tell stories is that we become so separated and disconnected. So I want to bring people together, and that's my great goal in life.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah. Elizabeth?
Honestly, I think a storytelling friend of mine forwarded the email to me, and then Rick put Ruby and me together as I think because we were from the South, and we got to have some conversations about our experiences of growing up in the deep South, and that's how it started. And it was really wonderful. So thank you.
Well, this is a question for any of you. Have your children, have any of your children experienced any discrimination?
Yes.
Yes.
I remember my son went to LSU for undergrad, and en route he stopped at a Denny's in Texas, and they didn't want to serve him. And he had grown up in Westlake Village, which is outside of Thousand Oaks. He'd never really experienced that like that. But this was, right outside of San Antonio. They didn't want to serve him at the Denny's, and he couldn't understand that. But and then he's followed when he goes to department stores. I'm followed when I go to department stores. So yes, it continues. It continues.
Oh,
Yes, yeah, my daughter's classmate said that, I don't know, how can Asian people see things with those slanty eyes? So my daughter looks like me, so, yeah, micro aggression. Yeah.
Thank you. Rupa?
Yeah, my thankfully, I think my girls didn't experience anything, hurtful. Though we used to move to different places, different cities every 2 years, and people would say, "Oh, you're going to Georgia, Atlanta. People are racist." But we had the most wonderful neighbors over there. So we've really, been fortunate that way, and it hasn't been bad for them.
Let's see, another question from an audience member. Was it difficult to work as a pair given that storytelling is usually done in isolation? Does anybody want to answer that? Your thoughts about that?
Can I say I really enjoyed working with Karen, and it was very enriching, and we discovered so much about each other, and so many things in common, because we came just 10 years. She came 10 years after me, so it was wonderful, finding out what we had in common and the differences, and based on our upbringing and culture. So it was a very, very enriching, and I would love to do it again with someone.
Oh, good.
Yes,
Very good.
yeah. First, I received this email, looking for paired tellers from Rick. Somehow I was in his list probably, so I was not going to do it. So I sent this information to all my Asian storyteller friends, and then Rupa asked me if she wants to do it, if I want to do it with her. So I said, no, I cannot do it, but she was very encouraging me. Rupa was always positive, and when I was shy, she encouraged me. So thank you, Rupa, for that.
Great. Well, Elizabeth, Ruby, what about you two?
If the question, what's the question again?
The question was it difficult to work as a pair?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
And
yes.
the fact that Elizabeth, because she initially said, she wished she had the courage and to change things. And well, I told her it took courage to tell the story that she told. So she has courage. Yes. So I was happy to work with her.
Yes. So did you find each other, or did Rick Roberts?
It was through Rick.
Okay, good. Great. How about you, Elizabeth? What was your experience?
It was funny, Ruby, Ruby is one of my favorite names. And so, but I don't know, I had this image of you very different from the beautiful person you are. And when we talked on the phone the first few times, I really loved that. And I love the collaborative part of just like thinking of what our theme would be, like how are we gonna connect that? Because you're right, storytelling is a solo thing, but not really, because I know that Canute, you helped us, and Rocky, our coach, helped us. So, and I feel like we helped each other. And so it ended up being a great collaboration.
Great, good, good. Now I am trying to find a question. They say there's a question in the chat for Rupa.
For Karen, shall I read it? Yeah,
Yes, for Karen. Yes, please.
It says, what's it like living in Georgia now? Has the racism changed, especially in this COVID world?
I live in a small town in Georgia, and then yes, it's I told about my daughter's school. Her classmates, 11 years old, classmates draw swastikas on the notebooks, and teacher give the assignment for the Nazi propaganda poster, and about those remarks.
Mhm.
And then her classmate said that if you're not Christian, you're going to burnt in the hell. And my daughter said, well, sorry, I have my own faith. So yes, I feel that. Yeah, it depends on the area, Atlanta should be more open to other culture and liberal.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate all the questions from the audience, and I appreciate you all coming tonight. And I want to thank Rupa and Karen and Elizabeth and Ruby for those thought-provoking and inspiring stories that you gave to us tonight. Do any of you have scheduled events or programs that you wanted to tell the audience about at all right now, or in this COVID environment? No? Okay. Well, I wanted to make sure you got that chance. So thank you all. I want to thank Dane Larkin again for his technical support, moving us through this. I want to thank Rick Roberts and the California Storytelling or the Storytelling Association of California for this exceptional project that brings us together. And I want to make sure that everybody knows that if you like to learn more about this project, to see past shows, to get involved yourself, please go to the Storytelling Association California website. The link is listed in chat right now, so it'll be up for a couple of moments. And I see got a couple of moments. And I want to be sure to say that. And I hope you all will join us again for more stories in living color. To all of you joining us tonight, we want to thank you and we appreciate your time. We understand that there are many things we can be doing in the evening. We believe this is a very important ongoing conversation, and thank you for coming and being a part of it. Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Oh, hey. Thank you all very much. I'm not sure